All right, everyone, we got a very special podcast. A good friend of mine for a long time, the man, the myth, Mark Finkel, known as Finks. How are you?
Yes, Mr. Gross, it's an honor. It's a
This
pleasure.
this is fun. This is a long time coming. I know we've talked about it. We haven't quite got it going.
It's been over a year. It's been over a year we tried to do this. I appreciate you staying on.
Let me just kick it off with this because I know you know what that is. And those,
Ooh,
yeah,
wow.
this is. I still have it. Just think about that, Finks. That's a powerful message you wrote to me.
You know, the history of that, Jeff, is the reason that I signed it is because it came from the sports card world, actually. I mean,
Really?
Well, I think in my mind, and hopefully in reality, that should be a collector's item. And if you have it signed and numbered, it's a relic auto. And those are worth a lot.
I know some of the men of Finks, they have theirs saved, and we've gone over that, and I love the message. I love the energy, and we can talk on that. But for those that don't know Finks, legend, honestly, just such a fun guy. I can't wait to just talk with you about wherever it goes. And you know, my podcast is more poker-centric. You know, the Magician, who I know, a very good friend of yours, been on twice. Strauss, got to shout the boys out, Bajay, all those guys, would love to have on.
Yeah.
But, you know, my audience is more poker geared. But let's
Sure.
just give a little bit of a background about who you are, what you do. I have some notes and topics I want to run through, but give me a little background on your
All
life
right.
and where you're at now.
Well, to your poker friends who I know some of and love, I just want to let you know I played my first poker hand a couple weeks ago. I don't play poker. I don't even know how to play, but I played a couple weeks ago, and I won a hand. And as I said to Magician, Jeff, that feeling was so pure. It was so pure to take the pot. You knew you had an okay hand. I think I had two pairs. And I might have even bluffed. It was really something. It was really fun. And I won and then just proceeded to give the whole thing back. And it was a disaster. But I'll never forget that feeling. It was almost like skiing for the first time. And then after you come off the hill, you just got to go back. So I'm not going to go back.
Was the high or low bigger?
Of fish.
Was winning the hand or losing more rewarding or intense? Or was it both?
Honestly? So I gave away $300 at the end of it. Winning the hand was worth it. Honestly, it was worth it. I can't fucking imagine with you guys and the stakes, and frankly the idiocy of it. I can't imagine. I can't imagine what that must feel like. I'll never forget that feeling, ever, ever, ever. It was one hand, probably my only hand ever, that I'll win, and it was a life event.
I get it. I get it. You got a little bit of static. I don't know if it's where your mic is exactly. You're talking to your headphones, but you're moving and shaking, Finks. I think it's a little bit of it was better. It was just kind of in and out. I think you're talking via your headphones, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
All right. Yeah, it's good. I think it's fine. I just heard a little static for a sec. Finks, we need a pure, clean podcast. So introduce yourself. Poker now we've checked off. You've played a little. Give me the life of Finks. Kind of run through where you're from and take me up to now, and then we'll kind of backtrack.
All right. From New York City. Lucky to be born and raised there. Went to a private high school, Riverdale Country, which was a very nice school in the Bronx. Focused around athletics, met a lot of my friends there. A lot of my old friends are still there, including one that we both know. From there, I went to Emory University, graduated, went to Los Angeles, started in the arm of a talent agency, became an agent. One day had a reckoning, moved back to New York in 2001, right before 9/11, and then stayed there for about, 13 years. Moved back to LA, started a family in 2014, and that's where I am now. So I've been kind of bouncing off the coast, I guess you could say. And my profession has been entertainment, and then real estate, and then now both. So that's kind of the long and short of it. I have a beautiful wife, 2 kids, a sister. My parents are still kicking over in New York, and my grandparents aren't here anymore. But it's pretty simple. That's kind of the overall of where I've been.
Well, I love it. I love your energy, and I definitely want to go through, kind of look at what's going on in the world, what you're out, your outlook is, what you believe like is hot, what's trending, where you want to shift your focus, what you think is going on. But first, I do want to kind of touch on when you moved to Los Angeles and you were actually in a mailroom Hollywood talent agency, I believe ICM, and you became one of the youngest agents there at 24 years old. Talk to me about that. What made you, why did you go in? Why were you in the mailroom? Were you wanted to become an agent? How did that kind of work out? And how?
Well, I mean, you know, one of my close friends, his mother was a famous producer, and she looked at me one day, and this was when I was in like 8th grade. She goes, you know, you'd be an amazing agent. I had no idea what agent was. And I think just because I was like, you know, probably a ham of some sort. And then I always loved movies. I always loved TV. I used to get dressed up when I was 6 years old for the Oscars. I used to wear, or maybe even younger, I'd wear those pajamas with the foot things. If I ever win an Oscar, I'll tell that story to the whole crowd. But I started realizing or understanding, you know, what a producer did, and I thought that was in line with what I liked. I also loved I love the whole subject matter of what, you know, I was watching. So I interned for New Line Cinema and then ICM in New York before I graduated college, and then I went out to LA into the mailroom and kind of looked at the landscape and saw that I could be successful. And I think what was interesting was that the journey on that one was more about getting to be an agent than actually, when I became an agent, being happy doing that. So I just was like, you know, see Sammy run when I was I guess it was 18, 19. Oh no, sorry. 19, 20 and 21 years old. I was just, you know, assisting in the mailroom, hustling and just working people and just making friends and so on. And, you know, opportunities arose. And I became an agent at 24 years old. I was specializing at the time. This was pre-Spider-Man Sam Raimi. I was specializing in comic books and toys, and I represented Lego and Ultimate Fighting, and just really immersed in that world that we see now is, you know, dominant in every level. Immersed in that world. But the truth is, it was really before its time as far as what those were then and where they are now. So there wasn't really much of a receptive audience at that point. So I was kind of operating in a vacuum. And then I became an agent and started representing directors and writers, which I thought was really cool. But also I thought at the time, as far as spectrum, super small, and I became disenchanted. And then I had a little event over at a movie theater. I was watching Castaway with Tom Hanks at the Santa Monica Promenade alone. And there's that scene at the end where he's in the middle of these crossroads, these 4 roads. And I just felt like it was me. And I had to make a decision. And I got out of that theater and I walked to Ocean Boulevard, had a pretty intense come to Jesus. And I went back to New York the next week.
Interesting. You know, it's funny. I had a moment in my life where I saw The Lion King, and I had seen it before, but it was like when I was older, and I had a kind of wild situation going on, and there was whatever, and it really spoke to me as well. Like I relate with that. When you feel something in your life that's happening, and then you're like kind of not sure, lost, and then something just speaks to you in like a scene or a movie, and you're like,
it'll
wow,
always
like,
come.
You're like, that's for me. I mean, I guess you could kind of find it to you know, but you're looking for a message, you got it, and then you decided to go back to New York, right? That was it. You were just like, I'm done. How did it work? Did you put a notice in? Were you just like, I'm out of here? It was. I mean, I think, you know, you hear the word bounce all the time. It was a full blown bounce. I was like, that's it, I'm out, because it was just that, I guess, that clear to me at the time. I was really missing New York. I was still, you know, I was 24, 25, and like my shit was not settled at all, and I just needed to, you know, get out. And I miss New York, and I miss the action, I miss the night, I miss the whole thing. So I think, you know, obviously in hindsight, which is hard sometimes, you know, that was maybe short-sighted in a way, but you know, that's life, and you gotta just keep going. So I think, and I say short-sighted because all those industries that I was specializing in, UFC, comic books, and Lego, just those 3 in general, are, you know what they mean today. So anyway, it was a move that I had to do, and I did it. And then I got into real estate in New York. Yeah, and so tell me how when you decide to move and you go back to New York, you get into commercial real estate. Was this something that you strike me as someone who's just a go getter. You want to do everything. You're bouncing around. You got ideas. You're ambitious. When you was that you had to get a license and was that like a slow process for you?
Well,
to get into it?
It's funny because I didn't know anything. You don't know anything at 24, 25. You literally know nothing. You're a fucking idiot.
Right.
And when I went back to start a company, and it was called Hub, which standard for Talent Hemisphere Enterprises, and it was it's basically the precursor for the card that you're holding called London Cohen, but the was an agency based on just representing all people.
Okay.
All people that weren't in the entertainment business. So I used to say, if you walk into a restaurant and you ask 90% of the restaurant, do you have an agent? And 90% of them would say no. And then I would say, well, why not? And then they wouldn't know what to say. And the point of that was that, in life, in everything, there's always a buyer, middleman, seller. And if you have a middleman that knows how to sell what your talent is to anybody and understands who the buyers are, you can be an agent in anything. And that's transitive. And so, transitive. And so, and London Cohen is a transitive property company. And so, what happened then was I had to find a job. I was runnerless. So I was raising money for the 9/11 happened, and that was out the door. I couldn't do it just because things were too shitty. So I had to find a job. And I literally remember, I haven't really told anybody this, but I looked up, I was at my parents' house, and I was looking at, for work section in one of the newspapers, and they have these telemarketing, jobs where they'll hire anybody on the street just to make money and just to basically, telemarket. And so I remember waiting in the waiting room of this telemarketing company, and I was talking to one of the people that were next to me, and he was asking what I was doing before, and I was like, oh, I was an agent. I was, I represented Francis Coppola, and I was on the team of Francis Coppola, and Aronofsky and a bunch of these, big directors. And he looked at me, he looked at me with a look of a dumbfoundedness that I'll never forget. He just couldn't, I couldn't believe what I was doing there, and neither could he. And it was kind of an interesting moment. Humble. So anyway, I had to find something that utilized the skill set of being an agent. And when I came to the realization that that's just being a middleman, and it's a middleman buyer seller, right? You're an agent, you sell talent to a studio or to whoever buys that. And that's the same thing that I'm doing, that I did in real estate. I represent tenants, restaurants, or retailers to sell to landlords. And it's the same exact thing. You put the same cap on. So that's how I got into that.
And one of the things I find, which a metaphor or analogies, poker for life or golf for life, and you can apply so many skill sets and use it. What did you find from being an agent during that period of time? What do you think you've utilized the most in your life that you've been able to take from that experience and work that into your everyday life?
I think it's a good question, and I think that with there's this word called talent, and you can't define it because there's so many different things that it could mean. But when you're looking, or when you're with an owner of a business or a proprietor, or you're with you treat everybody as talent. And that means that you care about what they're feeling, how they're feeling. You kind of you're in the service business with them. And so that's what I took from that. It's like, you gotta understand what they're saying. You always be open, always make sure that you're trying to say yes or get to yes. And then on the other side of that is work hard to get the right deals for those types of people to the buyers of them, which are, obviously in real estate, the developers, landowners, and in entertainment, it's the studios or the producers.
For sure.
So that's kind of the overall what I took. What I also, but what I did realize was a distinction was that, as an agent, you talk a lot. And you talk about, sometimes you talk about nothing. You just keep talking and talking and talking, and actually nothing's coming out, nothing. And I was comfortable in that back then. Now I can't. I don't want to talk at all. I don't even want to say anything. I don't even want to look at you. I just want you to get to the point, say yes or no, and that's pretty much it. And we can work around how to get there. But when people talk and talk and talk and they don't say anything, I just want to be like, you have to shut the fuck up.
And is that partly because of as you get older and you have 2 kids, you have a wife, and time, the
100%.
appreciation of time?
Again, at 24, 25, you know nothing, right?
Yeah, and you have nothing to do.
45,
yeah.
You're like, I have no time to listen, and I don't want to listen. I'm impatient, and I'm also like, dying. Tomorrow I'm going to be one day older, closer to the death, and this is morbid, but like, don't waste time. Don't waste my time.
Yeah. I actually,
so that was different.
I have one of my very close friends' birthday today, and I text him happy birthday, and then I like looked at the date, and I was like, oh, it's 2/2/21. I was like, oh, that'll be next year 2/2/2/2. That's funny. And then he was like, if I make it, and I was like, that's kind of fucking dark.
Yeah.
And he's like 52, but it's like, the world's crazy out there, man. Like COVID, who knows? Like, who knows? Like meteor, whatever other shit's going on. Like, it's just hard to keep up with.
You start thinking really crazy shit when you get older. Or when you start in middle age, you're starting to think some foul stuff.
Right. Well, let's keep it positive and moving forward. And actually, interesting enough, if I didn't do poker and whatever kind of I'm doing, just different sort of content stuff, that people ask about that, like, oh, what would you, if you didn't play poker, where would you go? What would you do? Like, that was my default answer, was an agent. One of my very close friends, his agent, Peter Carlisle, who works at Octagon, who I respect and known for a long time, I basically, like, I was like, man, that's so cool. Like Jerry Maguire, right? Like, you see a movie like Rounders for poker, Jerry Maguire for that. Like, I thought that was cool. Like, you get to, go around, represent, wheel and deal, talk to people, have fun. And that really appealed to me. I thought that would actually be what I believe I would do if I wasn't doing whatever this is that I'm doing with poker and content. And I think it's pretty cool. And let me just, before we close out on the agency chapter, do you think it was more like you were dealing with directors and writers and it wasn't your passion? You said you kind of lost it. Like, do you think if you were representing, like, let's say one of your best friends was an athlete in college and a star, and you were kind of rised up that way, like, would it have been more fun? Would you want to do some other stuff, or did you just think this isn't really what I want to do?
So it's a beautiful point you're alluding to, Mr. Gross. And I go back to this all the time. At that age, you just don't know what you don't know. You have no idea. There's no reference. You have no reference point. So while it was probably the most exciting thing, and it to me, because I excelled or succeeded in becoming an agent at that young, I just thought I could probably do anything I wanted, whenever I wanted, at any time. And that was the foundation of why I left, because I felt it was getting too small. If I did this in this long a period of time, then God, I should probably go much bigger than this. So, so I didn't, you don't know what you don't know. And so to me, the grass was always greener on the other side, and I wasn't present with it. So I went to the other side, which was New York.
And do you believe, though, the trajectory, like, if let's say you had just stayed in as an agent, like, do you have any regrets on that? Do you think that, like, if you had been there for this is a lot, 15, 20 more years?
I don't regret, because it's always, you have to just keep evolving. So there's no regret. You can't do that, or else
for sure. And that's not, I guess that's not the right word, but you know what I mean. Like, you're obviously, so let's segue into your second career, the commercial real estate. You had a stint you did in New York, and now you're doing it back in what you're doing. So give me a little bit of
So I went back to New York, and I started, just like the mailroom, you got to start over. And I basically was doing maps on the street, and I was hanging signs in buildings like crazy shit. And then eventually I, started garnering my own clients, and then, hustling them to their different buyers, so to speak. And I got into that. In New York, it was easy. It was a bit of a bubble, because, New York is high rents, high level, very high pedestrian counts, I should say. And, I saw a lot of companies go from zero to huge, when I was there. And so it was interesting, but it always wound up being a little bit less exciting, I guess you could say, than what was, than the agent or the entertainment product that I was in before. And I think it was just because it's not very creative as far as real estate. It is when you're starting to, employ your vision on certain projects. But at the beginning, it was like, you're doing drugstore deals.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And what would be the biggest comparison between doing in New York and then now in California? What is the biggest difference in the real estate, and how are you able to apply what you learned in New York and kind of capitalize? And also, two-part question is, would you say the New York, being commercial real estate, is it more advanced, or were you able to learn stuff in New York maybe ahead of the curve on what was going on in LA and pick up on some trends and stuff, or was it just par for the same? Were they both like in the same place?
Well, New York is definitely again, it's a bit of a bubble. It's a whole, the rents are 5 times as much as anywhere else. The competition for a space is 5 times as much as anywhere else. And frankly, it's dirtier than everywhere else. I mean, the real estate brokerage game is a dirty game, I think. You know, you never know nothing. Certainly as a middleman, you're not in control of anything. You don't control your destiny. The people that you represent or the people that you're selling to, they do. So what you learn sometimes is heartache from it, and what you learn sometimes is, you know, major success from it. But they're pretty much, you know, the same as far as the materials that you're working with and and how you're doing it. LA is much more spread out. New York is much smaller. Yeah, and I think the difference is in New York, there's just so many kids running around trying to do that, and then in LA, there's not as much, and there's some lifers too, which is interesting to see.
For sure, and also now, so you're doing producing and some film stuff. Tell us, like, what else besides commercial real estate. Tell us what you got.
Well, when I left agenting, there was a couple things that I kept my hands on, and I considered, I kind of optioned the rights to all of them. A couple comic books, a couple books, and one of them is a interesting project that I'm very excited about that is currently in development at Apple. And then another one is currently in development at AMC. And so that stuff is really kind of, for me, at this point, exciting and hopeful. I like being involved in that. And you know, I've been doing or thinking about this since I was, you know, 19, as far as seriously, and to have it somewhat come to fruition. I mean, we haven't seen it on screen yet, and you haven't read about it yet in the trades, but when that happens, I'll feel very, 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 very good.
And speaking of AMC, that's a hot topic. GME, AMC. Any thoughts on all that and what's going on with the markets, and how involved are you in terms of markets? Do you have advisors?
You know,
invest, or
I wish I was more involved. I think it's a reckoning, and I think it makes sense. I'm really interested in systems. My friend Stephen Aaroncrantz talks about that with me a lot. The systems behind the stock market is fascinating. I actually always had an idea to take people public, literally like you, Jeff, like you're a stock, right? The derivative up of that is the stock market, right? It's a bunch of companies based around people. But anyway, I digress. The whole system of that has been so protected and antiquated, I think, from all of these different mechanisms that are involved, that yeah, it's almost like everybody is shut out in a way. Like when a stock opens at 18, you don't get it at 18, you get it at 25 after all the fatzos already ate a little bit of it, right? So that's crazy. The whole thing should be open and transparent. I do believe that. So, you know, I think that that's a little bit what's happening. A lot of shit's going on. Crazy shit. All over the place. Yeah,
it's true. I mean, it's a crazy time to be alive. I mean, it's some really interesting things like crypto, sports cards. You know, I don't know. We mentioned, I don't want to spend a lot of time on it because I know it's not something you're really into. But just curious, like as a kid, did you collect, or was that popular? Did you?
I collected everything. I was a sports card everywhere, everything. Yeah, like thousands of them. But they're not worth anything. I don't know why the modern stuff is worth much more than
no, that's not true. That's not true. The old stuff is actually what's worth. The problem is you actually might be, if you got them laying in a trunk somewhere, you might be surprised because my generation was the wrong stuff to collect. Like I have early 90s. It's all like, for lack of better word, trash. And now it's actually getting a little bit more thing, but really like the 80s and before, you know, like the 80s.
What's a Henderson Topps rookie right now? That was 1980.
I see. My friend could rattle off, like, you tell me whatever. I actually don't know.
It's not nearly as much as some relic auto or jersey auto that you find right now. I mean, but it's good. Mattingly rookie, Clemens rookie, no. Nothing.
Clemens rookie is actually pretty valuable.
Really?
Yeah, like I bought one last year, and it's gone up a lot since, they were you'd be surprised. I think if you got
All
a trunk,
right.
you should take a look. Send me a couple pics,
I got
find
a
it.
trunk.
Yeah,
I got a trunk. I'm super into comic books, though. That's my thing. Not
yeah.
cars.
Well,
I
I
love
mean,
comic
yeah, that
books.
might be the next thing. Keep those preserved. Like, people are paying for video game cartridges, and Pokemon cards are going for $1 million. So, things
They
just
buy everything.
just hang on for that. And
They
I
buy
guess
everything.
one of the big things I want to ask you too then is about with what you see. You are
Josh!
we're in the mix. We're doing it. We're doing it. So I want to know what you are excited about and what you believe is the next sort of thing that you're kind of got your eye on. Because let's give a shout out to the men of Finks. The very strong group, great guys, very successful in their own right, in their own spot. Which
Yeah.
area, industry,
Yeah.
like within that crew, the mastermind there. What are people kind of hot on? What do you think people are sleeping on? What do you think with COVID and at home and working, and what are you kind of noticing, thinking about, and where are you looking to maybe pivot and take a shot in some industry other than the things we mentioned you got going on? Because I want to know, Finks, I know you know stuff, and I want to hear what you know.
Yeah, I got the eye on some trends. The MOF is a successful group. They really are. I mean,
It's a tough group. I don't even know what we can disclose or not disclose. I've dabbled, and then that's up to you. You're the face of the thing. You're the guy.
I'll tell you, it's a tough group to be in because like you gotta, you can't help but compare yourself to you are who your friends are. You can't really help but compare yourself to the guys around you. Some of these fucking guys. One of them, in particular, it's an amazing thing.
Right. It's yeah. So
but
you're the face of that group, but like you know what I'm saying. So whatever. I'm saying, what are you seeing? What are you noticing? What are we're joking around. It's a chat. It's a WhatsApp. It's a group, a chat group. WhatsApp's having issues itself. I don't know if that's getting moved to another platform. There's privacy issues. We could talk on that, which I'm fascinated on your thoughts. But tell me what you believe is like hot, trendy, and maybe people aren't aware to, and that you're thinking about.
Experience related things, experience related anything. I've been obviously probably a little bit foundationed in the hospitality industry as far as restaurants or entertainment in a real estate perspective. And so I just think the trend on that is just all experience. If you look what MSG is doing in the Sphere in Vegas, that's kind of where things are going. If you look at the companies coming out of the UK or coming out of the Europe and also the States, as far as employing content from the movie studios, and then making them into experiences, either theater or whatever, interactive things for the public in public spaces. That's at least what I'm seeing as far as trending in real estate. In entertainment, I think trending is you're going to see so much more beautiful content on TV just because of what's happening with COVID and the reset sociological button that's been pressed to everybody. Like I'm watching movies on HBO Max that I would have watched in theaters, actually judging them differently, which is interesting. So I think that the home theater is going to become much more prevalent in our world now. I think that health certainly is going to be something huge. I think that Tesla is going to kill it. And I think we're going to really get excited when people start colonizing, the moon and Mars. I'm into that. I want to buy real estate up there.
Yeah, I know there's there's real estate being sold. I don't think it's technically what's the word? It's not real,
Yeah,
but people
legal.
they're selling
No.
it. People are selling everything. So it's a crazy time. All right, real estate. I do have to ask because my main hub is the Miami area, and
Yeah.
I know New York is one of your main areas. And honestly, New York, LA, and Miami are pretty interesting right now. It seems like LA, that area is kind of in disarray, or like stuff was closed. So I want to talk about what's happening there, but also New York. My understanding and what I'm seeing, hearing, and noticing is a lot of people are moving from New York to Miami, whether it's in the financial institutions or people are just like, is New York in jeopardy? Are prices going down in real estate? Because like my understanding is people are vacating or whatever. Is that real? Like, is New York in trouble, or is this going to rebound?
I think there's a couple of driving forces in that. The first is that New York is mental. It's just mental. And then when you couple it normally being mental, I mean, you have so many people, the
Right.
noise there's actually true noise pollution. So many people, subways, and, Manhattan is one big concrete block. So you have that, okay? It's mental to begin with. Then you have the weather, which is truly special. It's very cold. And then you have kind of Miami, which is always warm, always hot, absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
Almost, bohemian, like my shirt. And it's almost an easy decision, especially if you can work in both places. So I understand what that move is. Prices going down in New York residentially, I think absolutely. I know that rent's been destroyed. There's tenants not ever paying rent again. So yeah, but I don't think New York is probably the most powerful city in the country as far as retention. It always bounces back, and it's not going to be like a catastrophe. People are always going to. I mean, my family's always going to be there. I'm always going to want to go back. But the move to Miami makes sense. So I was in Miami last week. I was socially distanced and masked up. Don't you worry, public. And it was a fucking Mardi Gras. It was unbelievable. It was actually ridiculous.
Well, Finks, first of all, I got to pause. We just got to take a real serious look at what's going on here. This is what I'm saying. This is a state, because we're one of those, whenever I see you or talk to you, I always just feel like we talk about, let's do something, let's get involved, and then life happens and kids and whatever.
Jeff Rose!
This is upsetting, though, because I'm not in Miami at the moment, but I am supposed to be, so I would have liked a notification, a call. I think we should have a rule anytime coming to California.
Look,
or you're coming
I'm there all the time, baby. Good Time Hotel. Me, Dave Ruttman, Pharrell, Eric Birnbaum. We're making a beautiful.
You guys are shaking and baking.
You're welcome.
Let's make sure we're aligned on that, because that's my hub, and this is not acceptable. So all right, let's.
Maybe we should have a poker room in there. See, boom.
I got a little something going there. Just Finks, next time give me more than 24-hour heads up, and you're welcome to stay at my place anytime as well. So whether I'm there or not.
All right.
Whether I'm there.
The 11th, JG, the 11th
of
February.
You said
it. I'm taking it down. Yes.
Oh wow. All right, I'll be back. So let's do it. That's official.
Let's do it.
That's in. We're in. We're doing something. All right. So Miami. So what do you and then LA? Talk to me about what's happening in there, because people are it's bizarre, right?
I'll talk to you about what's happening here. I'll talk to you about it. I'm going to talk to you about it.
Tell me what's the deal.
Well, I've been locked up in this shit box for 7 months.
Okay.
I've been homeschooling my kid. He's never been to school. He goes to private school. You know what it's like to watch you pay for tuition for private school, and they expect me, to teach him how to read and write, right? I don't know how to fucking read and write.
Right.
I got to teach him. It's been devastating, actually.
Right.
That's how it's been. It really has. It's like this homeschooling thing, and I have a 2-year-old, and she's not exactly, not crying. So I can guarantee that my son's not going to go to Harvard, and I can tell you that it has taken a toll that I never thought it would. That's the honest thing. I mean, this whole thing.
How old is your son?
He's 5.5 years old.
And he's out on Harvard. You're taking him out of the Ivies right now. And why is that? You're saying because you're the one teaching him, not the private school? That's what you're saying?
I'm saying because I'm the one teaching him.
Right.
And, at some point, he's got to understand that TH is right? And he doesn't get it. He doesn't get it. No, and you know what happens when he doesn't? You know what happens when he doesn't get it?
His sister doesn't get it, and you don't get it.
I don't get it.
Everyone's losing. So
nobody gets it.
That's tough. And when are they expecting? Like, because it doesn't even matter at this point. Is it almost like numb to it? Because I know they keep pushing back. Like, when is there even a plan, or they just stop with the plan? Or are they just like, we're not sure. We'll tell you when we're live.
The parents used to go crazy, and now nobody gives a shit anymore. He's already lost a year, basically.
Yeah.
I don't know. They say he might come back next week, but then there's going to be a strand that'll keep them back here. It's a never-ending cycle of viciousness. It really is. And I'm right in the middle of it. And I got to tell you, it's taking a toll.
So let's talk about mental health a bit, and just in general, because I feel like this is something where you're working at home, you have kids at home. My son's just under 2, so it's a little different. He's not doing the homeschool, but like, let's talk about that's type of deal. You're at home, you're not really going out much or at all or whatever. I don't know. Like, can you go out and like walk around, or you can't really go outside? Like, what's the deal?
We can go to your backyard, but nothing's open. Or it hasn't been open. So there's very little to do, and honestly, because of the the rates that have gone up and so on, you're also you're kind of fucking scared. So you don't even want to go out. But I don't know, man. I think mental health is going to be one of the lasting victims of this whole thing. It's, if you have a propensity to I'm a little unstable to begin with. My dad was kind of fucked up. But if you have the propensity to go there or those places, it will be accentuated by the situation. And certainly if you have kids of that age that are thrown in the middle of it, and then you have, my wife works on the COVID floor of one of the hospitals. So I'm pretty kind of in this bubble of COVID, and it'll get you. And, when you find yourself drinking and, doing shit at home by yourself, and you're just like, wow.
Right.
Yeah, it's there's some stuff.
I mean, that's like the thing, because it's interesting topic, but it's true, because like life has kind of its design, its course, and your kid goes to school and you have time, whatever. Like all of a sudden, in these things, all right, like look, I love my wife, or if you have a girlfriend, a partner, whatever it is out there, it's cool, but like doesn't matter who it is. If you're with someone 24/7. It just doesn't really design. Like, it's like you need some time in certain, spots or apartments. Or imagine being in New York City and you're in like a 2-bedroom or 1-bedroom place with your person 24/7. You can't leave. Like, people go nuts, man. It's like, it's hard to even understand, right? Like, it's hard to even.
You're gonna see a few more kids from this, and then you're gonna see a lot of divorce.
Right. I mean, honestly,
it's not meant to be.
When you look at Tipping Point or Blink or whatever in these things, and you start talking about like periods in time, like, I think when you look from like 16, 20 years, 30 years from now, there's going to be some weird stuff happening, and a lot of, there's definitely some repercussions and stuff that's come with it. So what would be your advice based on what you've been doing, what you've been noticing, what you see is working and doesn't work? What do you think, what would be some advice out there for people, and because I feel like you're intuitive, you're sharp, you talk with people. I want to hear what you believe is some tricks or things that you say, okay, I'm not doing this anymore, this hasn't been working, or this is what I find helps. Give me a little bit of that.
As far as what, being in the bubble of COVID?
Yeah, like and being at California COVID, and what you would what you're kind of looking, how do you kind of
honestly
handle
okay, I'll tell you because I just kind of proved it. There was a couple months ago, it was dark. It was just super dark, and my wife got a Peloton for I guess. I don't know.
It blends together. The years blend together. I don't even.
I don't know what the. Yeah,
I couldn't tell you what
I don't even know what the last holiday was. So yes, it's in our garage. I started doing it, and I started feeling better. And I got to say that, like, I guess the truth is, exercise really does work. It does. And I've put on whatever amount of weight since this whole thing went down, but exercise does work. You got to do it, or you got to go to something else and do that. But you gotta get out the stress somehow. And recently it's made a mark in terms of like, okay, you start to feel better just normally. Yeah. It's important.
I agree. And it's also, you got to carve that time out, have a trainer, or have a set time for yourself, because it really can go a long way. If you don't do it, it's so easy. All of a sudden now it's 11 a.m., 9 a.m., your kid's doing school, it's nighttime, and the day just goes or whatever. Yeah.
A body at rest tends to stay at rest. And it's easy to stay at rest. And by the time, and I'm a perfect example, by the time you know it, you're messed up. Your body's messed up. Your head's messed up. Everything's messed up. And then you got to get it out and get it off. So that's what it's important to do that. And I think if the gyms are closed, everything's closed.
I agree. And so actually, in terms of the real estate, how does that affect like that industry and business with people not paying rent, with commercial real estate? What are you noticing, and what do you think the long-term impacts are going to be with this, and how does that impact your business?
Well, I think the long-term impacts are long-term, and that was a box that I was checking during this whole thing. Being in my position where you're a commission-based, where you make your living off of commissions and you have no control of who opens and when, because of this, you don't get any commissions. And when you do a deal the year, like this has taken effect to the point where when you do a deal a year prior to today, that deal, because it has so many triggers to pay the commission, it's in jeopardy and won't pay. And then the deal moving out for another year won't pay because of the time element and situations there and the different attributes of the deal. So it's been effective, and it's been detrimental to my business or to a lot of people's business in real estate, not even more than landlords. 3 years, like you're 3 years away from kind of making up or coming back to a normality of where you could maybe depend on this type of lifestyle in this business. So there's a lot of pivoting that needs to happen, a lot. And, you know, we're kind of in the midst of what that looks like now, but it's specifically in this type of business, real estate, being an owner and or being a broker and being a tenant, you know, everybody's down 70%, 80%. It's a very, very scary time. Very, like, really scary.
Yeah, and I think, you know, there's stimulus checks, the government's printing money. I've been over the COVID period. I was in Michigan at one point. I see in Miami when I've been here during parts of the time as well. When I'm there, it's like, you know, stuff's open, people are spending money, stuff's going on, but it's kind of weird, right? The stock markets are up, Bitcoin's over 35K, sports cards, everyone's buying. Like,
I honestly, Jeff, it might be beyond my mental ability, but you know, we got guys that are so smart. I don't understand it at all. I can't understand how everything is kind of really the worst it's ever been economically. People are dying. And the stock market's never been higher. Like, I don't really fundamentally get that.
Right,
unless it's all based on, and it could be, and I've seen this as far as nature, unless it's just all based on lies, and those lies beget wealth. You know, I mean, I'm stuck in this. I have so much time to think here, but I don't know. I don't want to say that my outlook isn't positive, because it is. But like, is it all one big lie?
I mean, listen, we could go deep and crazy with the simulation and all the other stuff, what's going on out there, like in the world. But I mean, honestly, when you really step back, you know, I've been in Brazil and I look at the you know, Trump's president, like people are storming the Capitol building wearing costumes. They look like they're in Burning Man. Crypto's going wild. Like, you know, it's just kind of wild.
It's
like
fucking bananas.
It's manic.
It's bananas.
And it's so, we're numb to it, right? Because like, again, like the COVID, I remember the first part where it's crazy. You know, I was in Russia. Like, how do I get home? Like, what's going on? You know, this is that. And then like all of a sudden, even people in the industries, like the sports cards, my friend who's one of the leaders of the, like at the top, like he was like, go ahead.
You just told me a Jordan rookie PSA 10 at one point, you think, and I don't disagree with you, it was going to be $1 million.
It was at 20,000 in January 2019. It was at like 100K in September. Two just sold for 748,000 like 3 days ago at an auction. And no one can get them, and everyone wants them. And a Jordan 1 was like $300 a year ago. It just sold for $3,700. A 1. I mean, it's in like, this is just, and it's not, and people want to say a bubble or whatever. And listen, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just telling you, I know energy. I saw daily fantasy. I saw Bitcoin. I see it. I feel it. I know like what I believe and what's true. And based on like, you know, that's sort of my world is talking to people.
No, frequency.
And people are bananas. I got friends that own stores. They can't get inventory. I got guys I meet at a party that are buying $500,000 in sports cards after they didn't know what they like. Oh, because, you know, it hits that frequency as well of like, oh, as a kid, you know, Finks, you got kids that are growing up now. Your son, sports. I used to collect. That's kind of fun. Oh, do I want a $5,000 painting, or do I want a, you know, a Kobe, you know, this, and like there's nostalgic stuff with it too, and it just kind of like right place, right time, technology. There's apps now. You know, I don't know if you remember Beckett. Did you ever have those magazines you look up? Yeah. So now though, there's like websites, and you just plug it in and you can see what just sold and get alerts for it's just like, it's right place, right time. Sports is legal at a federal level. People like to gamble. It's like you don't even have to you don't even have to bet on the Super Bowl. Buy a Brady card today. It's either going to go up a lot or go down some, but you know, like it's an interesting little interesting world. But I forget where I was going on a tangent.
We were talking about things are absolutely bananas.
Right. Well, also in terms of if it falls apart and like to the point of it feels like there is something coming, because I was saying about my friend who's in sports cards. He was like, the world's ending. He was like, dude, I might have to sell. He was going to sell like this and that, and was like panicking. He thought the market with COVID would like, because historically, like when the housing crash, that hurts the market, like sports cards, right? Because it's like people don't have all the extra income or money disposable, and they're just like whatever. But this time it's different. People are at home. They couldn't watch sports. They want to get in whatever. But like that, the point is, people all thought the world was ending. Like the stock market fell like that. No one thought. I mean, the opportunity to buy, like, it got back to new all-time highs, but yeah, the question is it going to drop to new all-time lows and maybe not recover, or are we just like pretending nothing's wrong? Because it's almost like people think nothing's wrong. Like that's how it's acting, like everything's normal.
No. There's something very, very, very wrong.
Right.
There just is something very wrong with what's going on, because none of it makes sense. And usually when it doesn't make sense, it's not sensical.
Right.
I mean, we're not stupid. We know how to speak English, and we're not like, we understand language, which is the basis of like communication. So there's just something not right with what's happening, I don't think.
Right.
And there usually is, I mean, I think the yin yang of the world and all that kind of stuff usually is a correction of some sort. And there's going to be on this. There has to be, I think, because none of it is based on foundational, I guess, data. It's also just all fucking hype.
It's also like, yeah, it's FOMO too, because now it's similar with sports cards. Like part of me is like, oh, I should sell a good part of my cards because doesn't make sense. But then you're also like, oh, if it starts to go down, like I'll just go out. But like that's not really how it works. You know, you can't. You either kind of get out or don't, because like once stuff starts really happening and going down, you know, if it does, whether it's sports card, crypto, or the market, you know, because not everything's gonna win like this rate. It's not all just gonna keep going like perfectly smooth. So you know what and where and you know, it's at the same time though. It's kind of hard to just pull out when you're in the zone, right? When things are really flowing, like.
Well, you're also so vested. So I mean, I don't know. It depends on your outlook. If you're conservative, you'd pull out. If you just want to ride it, and it's also I mean, that's the most speculative, whatever. I always just say, let's just buy bullion, just buy gold. And,
I saw some big report that Reddit was pushing silver. Have you seen the silver push?
I love silver. I love it. I'm down with bronze, bro.
Any of it.
Bronze.
All right, that's a good. Yeah. Well, the silver supposedly just went up a lot. I don't know. I don't really know, but they were
diamond, gold, coins. Just go old school. This other stuff, I just don't understand it. I really don't.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why I'm not a fucking billionaire.
And what do you most excited about coming up? Like, would you have the agency to bring this to fruition? Would you want to do something like that? Or are you happy? You got a lot going on, but is there any like passion project that you would really want to do?
I'm really excited about these hopefully these entertainment projects I'm working on. I really am. I mean, they speak to me as much, if not more, than everything else. And I've come to a place where it's like, you know, you got to know yourself. At some point you should, at a certain age. And, you know, I get excited when I talk about these things, and I get passionate when I think about them, and I get hopeful, you know, and that means a lot. And so that's kind of what I'm excited about. And, you know, look, the card that you have, London Cohen, it's basically a stock market for people. That's the end game, right? And it's a circle of people that I connect with, that I give them that. It's a token of my attachment to them, so to speak, right? It's almost like, all right, I'm gonna give you this, and I represent you now in life. And there's no consideration. There is nothing that you need to give me for that. Nothing. It just means that you're with me. It's basically a social network. And I want nothing for, there's nothing, right? And you're a member of London Cohen now. So what does that mean? Maybe it means that if I ever see anything that I can connect you with, let's talk about it. That's all. And it's just, you're part of my life. That's what that is. And
how many people possess something like this? How many people are part of London Cohen?
That's Transitive a really property. Good question.
You're not just handing them out. Right?
No, I'm not just handing them out. No. Every person that has that is very special. But the last count was 68.
68. All right. That's not a ton. Yeah, it's not. I mean, that's more than I thought.
No, it's not a ton. But it really entails, like, you know, you got to know the person, you got to talk to them, you got to have a frequency with them. It's very, very special.
Are there more printed? Are there more that are available? Like, or do you have, like, did you print 100 and you just, like, you have some left, or could you just print more, or do you print more, or is that, like, did you number them? Is that it? Is there a certain cutoff?
I have 300.
Oh, there's still plenty available. Okay.
There's still. I've been a little bit preoccupied. I mean, you can't get out.
There's not. Yeah. Who are you giving them to? At some point, you can't. They've been frozen for a while. And I guess my other question to you is about you know, seeing the entertainment industry, the nightlife, the restaurant business. You know, obviously with Jason and just kind of, you know, seeing that. Tao, Lavo, you mentioned Madison, MSG, what's going on? Like, how do you feel like that industry in particular? Do you think that they're, you know, where do you see that outlook? Because I'm just curious. In LA, there's so much nightlife, so many restaurants, and those type of businesses, the restaurant nightlife stuff. I mean, that's a bigger type of brand and production. I guess they do takeaway, but what do you think Because I mean, you know, at some point we're talking about so many people's lives, jobs. You're talking about real estate. You're talking about, you know, like you were mentioning the pipeline and how things get messed up. Restaurants, waitresses, workers, business. Like at some point, like if things all really mess up, it's you know, it can kind of just everything get really messed up. So what's going on there?
Look, there's a theory, and I actually think it's pretty sound, that the 20s, the success of the 20s for the country was based on the Depression, right? And the Depression was so dark, not probably so different from what things are like now. I mean, there's no, you know, food lines or stuff like that, but it was so dark that people were so excited to get back out, so excited to get back to drink, get back to, you know, communal eating, that it led to the Roaring 20s. And I think that it's not a bad theory. And the proof of that a little bit is kind of what I just saw in Miami, which was bananas. People are just, you know, out and eating and in places of community and basically just like, you know, congregating. And they're happy to do it. They don't care so much about what's going on. I think if you take that on the macro, that you're going to see guys like Tao and guys like the other groups that make it out of this alive. You know, it'll take them years to get back to where they were, or as far as, you know, the money that was lost during all of this. But I think that their businesses are going to be more powerful than they were before.
Yeah, I would.
People are just ready
to go. And what about the information, you know, Democrat, Republican, you know, different news, you watch one channel and the other. How do you believe that, like, Florida and California and New York, how can they all be operated so differently in different cities, counties?
Right.
Like, how confusing is that if you're like someone at home?
It's incredible.
It's like honestly, how I don't even know what to believe. You know, I got my parents say one thing, your wife says another. It's like it gets stressful too, because then you don't really know what to do, because like you have your opinion, but you know you're like offending, and that, now you're already like church, state, religion, government, these things you don't talk about. Now here we go. This is like a current event, and we're not trained. And how do you handle that? How do you know what to believe? Our president says one thing, the mayor, governors, like where do you make a decision? You know, your wife is on the front line there with nurse and COVID, and like probably has a pretty good idea, but like you know, what do you do? News
so JG,
what's real? Fake news, you know? What are we doing?
I'm very into this. Like I'm very into this subject. I always have been. I'm very patriotic. I love our country. I really I love our country. I'm a liberal. I'm a Democrat. And my news source is Fox. I watch Fox. And I watch it because I'm smart. And I watch it because I'm accepting. And I watch it to see other people's views. I know what mine are. And it's not hard to understand what your views are. It's your belief system. It's how you were brought up, I guess, you know, most importantly. But also, like, it's hard to, it's a feeling. Like, you know what the truth is. You know how you feel about the truth. Which is why I believe that there's two different countries. I mean, I think that some of the things that you watch, the opinions, while completely valid, are so different than mine, and so much more like they're so not blasphemous, but they're so crazy as far as like, how could you think that way? That and I don't want to overstate this, but I accept them all. I think that they're all completely valid and they're wonderful, but they're so different than mine that you wonder how we all coexist the way that we do. And it's wonderful. It's kind of a wild thing. It is a union, and you have to be like that. But what we're seeing today is like, you know, when Trump won, I was watching it, and that was the first time I realized, like, wow, I really don't have no idea where I live. I don't know this country at all. I know New York, I know LA, I know Miami, I know Chicago. But those are all like-minded states. Not Miami, or Miami, you know, Dade County specifically is. But it was a reckoning, I think, for a lot of people, especially, well, certainly for me. And I can't overstate how shocked sometimes and surprised I am by how other people think. And it really leads yourself to, like, you don't really know anyone.
Right.
I mean, it's hard to really, really know somebody. And when you see what's going on now, we have two different sides, two different countries, and it's incredible. And I watch Fox, one for the interest of seeing other people's point of views, but also, like, I just can't, like Tucker Carlson or Hannity. Like, I sometimes do a video to Hannity because his monologue when he gets on, it's basically just whining, and you're just like, oh, Hannity, I know, and it's just. I'm very interested in the whole thing, but it's certainly it's shocking sometimes how one side can feel the way that they do.
Well, I mean, it's also, you know, cultural, and again, like you said, it's like in our way, we're Americans, we're patriotic, or we love our country, but then you're like, wow, like this is what I would expect in some other country or some other like different upbringing or something. It's almost like a different world within the same area, you know, like you travel around, or you see some stuff, right, and you're like, oh wow, that's super interesting, or you know, different religions and stuff, right, and you're like, all right, I get it, they're raised and they feel this way, but then it's like, oh, we're in the same, this guy lives in, you know, down the road from me, or even my neighbor, and he's just like on a totally other wavelength, and
it's fascinating. And you're like, wow, really, wow.
Yeah, like where did that happen? How did you believe that? Or why did you, you know, what do you mean?
I know.
Yeah, so
the whole fake election thing is.
Yeah, it makes, you know, like you hear Venezuela or these other countries where there's rigged elections, and I saw some funny memes too where it was like when they were, you know, talking about when the election or the results or whatever, and then like, you know, they're saying, well, we know they know their results like the day of or before, right? Like it's already set who wins or whatever, and Russia's poisoning people, and you know the guy, it's just different countries and different things, and you start wondering like, wow, are we really, is the U.S., is it like we can't sort out in 2020 a clean election, a way to do it? And like, you know, in Brazil, for example, you have to go with the thing, and they have like, you have to vote to get your benefit. Like they have it in a way where it's, and there's not any problem, or I mean, very little. And then, you know, in ours, it's like they saw this coming, and it just seems like crazy that we can't sort it out to get a clean election, or like like it just, you know, and then problem is so many people believe, whether it was or wasn't, no
election.
Right.
It was a clean election.
That's what I'm saying. But
there's 300 million people in this. 300 million.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you expect to have like the most efficient election we could possibly have? There's going to be, I don't know, standard deviation of 1 or 2% that's going to get fucked up. But like 300 million people, if some dude isn't watching something, he's not 6 feet, he's 6.5 feet out, you just want to discount the whole election? It's nonsensical. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
the whole thing is pretty incredible.
And so I guess my question to you would be, if you are at home somewhere in America and you are looking for clean news and understanding, and let's just take the coronavirus. Let's say you're in a family. Let's just say your wife thinks one thing and your parents say another, and they're both super passionate, right? That, let's say you say one thinks COVID is not a threat. Don't worry, you know, we're healthy, this or that, or just, you know, you can't live like that. And the other side is like, don't go outside, don't do whatever. And then you're caught and you're not really sure, right? Like you're kind of like, all right, like I get it. I don't want to give it to people. I don't want to get it. But if I get it, I believe I'm healthy and I'm not going to like live in a hole and whatever. But you're sort of like, you're not sure. Like, how do you go about, because I think this is something people are struggling with, and the fact that your wife is in the a nurse and she's in the dealing with this. So what would be your advice? And again, obviously, you know, do your own, right? Obviously, everyone at home, you got to make your own decisions and, you know, take all the things. It's like, it's kind of a complicated formula, right? You're like, well, I'm healthy, but what about my parents? And, you know, you have to start thinking, and so many people are confused. Like even Canada, USA, you got to quarantine for 2 weeks if you go somewhere. You know, the tests, Elon Musk is saying, I took 4 tests, 2 are positive, 2 are negative. You know, that's like who people look at as like the leaders, right? Like guys like that. That's who people look up to. And there's just so much like confusing information. So it's like, what do you do? What would you suggest?
Well, the whole thing is such a shit show. It's like you're walking on the street with your mask. Nobody's around you, but you have to have your mask on because you're walking. Then you sit down at a table and you take your mask off when people are around you, or airplanes. I mean, it's wild. Again, it's like, what's your value system when it comes to politics? You just got to feel what you think is right. You got to feel your instinct. You got to go with the gut. You know, if your mom thinks that COVID's not real, or that she likes a political view, and your wife thinks that COVID is real and likes the opposite view, you just got to go to the basis of, well, they both love their kids. You know, like everybody loves their kids. There's a foundation, and everybody's human in some way. And that's why I have no problem with anybody that doesn't feel the way I do at all, because there is a level set. I mean, there's a foundation. So I always go to that, and that's how you kind of get away from the dissension of when people don't think the same things. But as far as like what you think, what how to react in this situation here, it's like you got to go with your gut. Don't be in a car with somebody who has COVID. Be socially distant and wear your mask.
Right.
I guess.
Right. Yeah. And I think ultimately, fundamentally too, they're kind of like. I've done some personal development courses, and one of the things I think it helps to remember is, do your best. Like, that's what you can do your best. People are oftentimes doing their best. Like you see a parent yelling and freaking out at a kid. They're probably not a bad person. They're probably just stressed out of their mind. They got financial issues, whatever, right? They got stuff. People have things going on. Like, you can't look at a second and like think that someone's crazy or like got a call, to report. Like, people have a lot on their plate, and it's an overwhelming time, So
Jeff. I'm Zoom schooling my kid, right? And I'm in the background. I'm just like this. I'm still working and whatever. And I get a note or a letter from the headmaster of the school. And the note is, I can read it, but the note says something to the effect of, we've had teachers, students, and parents complain and are outraged at your continually saying the words fuck, shit, and stupid on the Zoom calls with the kids who are 5 years old.
Yeah.
And I just wrote it back. I mean, obviously, because this is how I talk, and I'm in my own house, and my kid's with me, and fuck off. And so I wrote him back. I'm just trying my best, and that was it. There's nothing you can say. There's nothing else you can do, right? I'm trying my best. If it means so much to you, open your fucking school that I pay you so much money to have, and get my kid back in there so he learns something and doesn't learn from me. Period. It's very simple. And fuck off.
How did that go?
Terrific.
There's no reply.
I think he wrote back like, "Thank you so much for your honest response" or something like that.
Right.
Whatever.
All right. There you go. That's no. It's
outrage. The word outrage is what really got me. Parents are outraged. Okay. Well, fuck you.
Yeah. That's man. So I think that's just a good. Again, it's an indicator. Life's crazy right now. Do your best. Try to realize that everyone's kind of we all have our stuff going on. We all have unique situations. And again, in terms of, there's a lot of information out there, but use common sense. Go with your gut.
Common sense.
It's
gut.
just
always gut. Always gut. It's in poker, dude. Always gut.
Speaking of poker, so are we going to see you anymore? Was that a one and done? You got your 300. You won a pot. You got lost.
No, I lost my 300. I think I won $60, and then I gave that and whatever I had to play with back. So right. I mean, the feeling was so pure. But I mean, as our friend Antonio, the loveliest Fendiari, would say, you're a fish. And I will tell you first and foremost that look at me. I'm a fish. I'm a full-blown fish. You sit me at a table and you just start, it's like pork chops.
I will say that shirt, I like the shirt, but that's the shirt I'm looking for at the Aria,
yeah, exactly. Who's that guy?
That's that guy. We need that guy around. That's a beautiful, I like the shirt though. Well, listen, Finks, I mean, you're one of those guys. I think we'll have to auto stamp you for 2-3 podcasts, like for
Jeff,
more.
This was a pleasure, an honor. I'm happy. This is the first time I ever put something down like this. So I was nervous at the beginning, but now I'm not. So
what about? Well, yeah, no. Listen, it's been a treat, man. I really do. Again, for those of you that maybe tune in or fast forward around, and as we're kind of closing out here, this is Mark Finkel, known as Finks, and just he's not a poker player. As he was mentioning, he's played once. He's not. He's a jack of all trades. He's just one of those guys you love to talk to. Super sharp. Done real estate. He's an agent, one of the youngest agents ever at IMG, and he's been around and had a lot of great stories. So, you want to leave us with any?
Finks.
You want to leave us? Shout out to Men of Finks. Do you want to tell a story, an anecdote?
Men of Finks for life, and shout out to my good buddies. I want to say, if my family ever sees this, I love you so much. I love the kids. Darlene, I just hope everybody stays healthy and we come out of this a happier country, because we need to. And Jeff, you're doing your good work. We appreciate it.
Listen, I appreciate you being on. And Finks, if ever you go into podcasting, which I think would be that might be your calling, even though it would take a while, right?
I'm thinking about it, and I had this bad boy to go today, but it didn't work because Apple and this and that. It's all bullshit and lies. This doesn't work.
Let me just see. Put that in the mic. You should have just left that in the shot. Like we could have.
Oh, really?
Push it over a little. Push it
This
it
way?
so it's not all the way. Yeah, like so you're not blocking you, but yeah, maybe so the cord's off. Just like it's there. I mean, this is what we needed. But Finks, this is what I'm talking about. It's hard. You know, this is like because if you just throw you at the right setup, if you could just show up and be on a podcast, you'd be top of the charts. But
I'm down to do it. I'll tell you what. You know what the hurdle on that is?
Yes, I know a lot of hurdles.
This
right.
and this and
Technology.
your fucking interface and this and mute power.
And you're homeschooling. Bullshit. And you can't swear and be on homeschool and be next to your kid.
No, this is how I talk on the phone, and I'm next to my kid who
he knows you mean well with that. Like he's not.
He knows I mean well, but the headmaster, or whoever that is,
the
they're
headmaster
not happy. They're outraged. They're outraged.
Just leave it right. Pull it in a little. There you go. That's good. We'll make that'll be our shot because Finks, this was not live. So honestly, it's unfortunate because like we said, live and a liability. You were we for a few reasons we didn't do it live, but honestly, there's no edits. This is just a clean
all right.
cut. No, you crushed it. This was absolutely a gem. Like I said,
was all right.
A repeat guest. Maybe we get you on with Jason and have some fun on a duel. But I think you should look into your own podcast and just get it set up. Like just have it available and down the line. I think you would enjoy it.
So JG, let me ask you a question. You have some dude in Kazakhstan working your system
Croatia,
right now?
Not some dude Vadran. He's a legend. He's honestly the Prince of Croatia. This guy. Without this, I have no shot. Like what you're saying. That's my day. It's embarrassing. I couldn't get live on Twitch if I had to.
Do it.
You need help, man, because it's so tilting. If you knew the places in the world, it's crazy, man. And then every time there's static or one thing doesn't work. Or imagine traveling. Imagine doing it on the road. You lose your luggage. Like you go to Airbnb or the hotel, they say they got upload download good. It's not. Like I've dealt with so much BS, and it's just such a learning thing. But we got to get you off the ground.
You think with this many podcasts, this many people, that they'd fucking figure it out, make it easy for the common person.
Man, I'll tell you what, a podcast in a box or something, right? Like you could just open it up and just be live and have
Why
it
is
all,
that so hard?
Maybe that's a play.
I got this fucking thing. Good. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
And
there. That's where it should have been. We should have been like this just to look like you were audio on that, but that's a good shot. This could be our cover shot. Like I was saying, we're not live, so we got it. We're going to put this out this coming week. You are going to be podcast number 119. And
yes,
man,
Jeff.
this is good stuff, man. I appreciate the time. Thank you so much. The legend, Mark Finkel, Finks in the book, MOF, shout out. And we'll see you guys on another podcast very soon.
Thanks, Jeffy.
Thank you very much.